Hello and welcome to the Sage Business Cloud webinar. In today's session, we'll be looking at the planned upgrade from Sage 1 Accounts to Sage Business Cloud Accounting. We'll cover why we're upgrading to the new platform, take a look at the ins and outs of the Sage Business Cloud Accounting program, and what this means for you as well. So let's take a look at what we'll be covering in this session. First of all, we'll cover why we're moving from Sage 1 Accounts to Sage Business Cloud Accounting, what Sage Business Cloud Accounting does. We'll take a look at the program and cover the new and improved features. And then we'll take a look at what this means for you once the upgrade has happened. Finally, we'll look at some further support options you'll have in your new program, and then we'll cover anything else that we would need to. So let's first of all take a look at why we're moving on to Sage Business Cloud Accounting. So a few reasons that I could think of. The first one, or the first couple should I say, is that the current program is a little bit outdated and it's on an old platform, meaning that it's not actively sold, nor is it supported by our developers anymore. So I'm going to say that it's not really sold. It's been about 2015 since we had the new package come into effect. And our developers, when developments come into the program, such as new features, new updates and improvements, they'll tend to be applied to the Sage Business Cloud Accounting program rather than this one. Another reason is that Sage 1 Accounts is not Making Tax Digital compliant. So Making Tax Digital is an initiative brought in by HMRC to revolutionize the way that tax and VAT returns are kept and submitted. Sage 1 Accounts isn't compliant for this, coming into effect from the 1st of April 2019. However, Sage Business Cloud Accounting already will be. Another reason for the change is that Sage Business Cloud Accounting is just a better program. It includes more features and improvements on what's currently available, and this makes it a much more flexible and intuitive accounting solution. So we'll take a look at the reasons for this now. So here's a brief summary about what accounting does, and this will shed a little bit more light on what we covered in the previous slide. As we say, there's a lot more features and there's a lot more improvements in most areas of the program compared to what you've used before. You'll be able to report on a lot more and go into more detailed analysis when you're running your reports at the end of the month, quarter, or year. You'll also find that it's easier to correct errors and do a lot more with the tools to your disposal. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to jump into my dummy accounting system, and we'll take a quick glance at how the system looks and feels and how to navigate around it. So here is my program. I've got a summary tab up on the top left-hand side and some other tabs across the top. This will be a fairly familiar look to the program, so you will have already been processing by navigating it across the top and then doing your processing within the middle of the screen. First thing we'll notice that the program is a bit bigger in terms of how it looks. You don't have it just as a bit of a square in the middle. It's a more full screen sort of program. So when I log in, I'm taken to the Getting Started screen where I can set up my customers, set up my suppliers, connect to my online bank accounts, and also set up my chart of accounts. I've also got the optional extras on the right-hand side, which will be customizing and personalizing my program to make sure I'm getting the most out of it. If I click on the Sales tab from the right-hand side, I can see a graph showing how my business is performing in my sales, and I can also see my outstanding sales invoices, as well as my top 5 customers and debtors. On the right-hand side, I've got a new feature, which is quotes and estimates, and also a bit of VAT information. This is currently blank, seeing as I'm using a dummy company, and I will be adding more transactions to it. With the purchases, pretty much the same, except it shows the outstanding purchase invoices to your suppliers. And you'll also have a bit of VAT information with regards to it as well. On the cash flow statement and cash flow forecast areas, you'll be able to see how your business is performing in the last 30 days and the next 30 days based on your bank accounts. So I can select one or more bank accounts from here and click Calculate to deliver a little bit of a graph below. I can see what my opening and closing balances are going to be within the period, and I can run a report that's going to give me a look in PDF or CSV format. Cash flow forecast is very similar, except that this is going to be for the next 30 days as a default. You can also put in manual adjustments to see what things are going to look like without having to put in the transactions in yourself. Next thing we'll look at will be the sales. So on here we've got the new quotes and estimates option. We've got the sales invoices, credit notes, and also quick entries. The same goes for purchases as well, with purchase invoices, credit notes, and quick entries there as well. So quick entries are just a faster way of putting in an invoice, so it means you can enter your sales and purchases, put in all the main details that you would do for an invoice, but you can do this for batch customers and batch invoices if you would like to. It's a faster way of putting things in. It means that you won't be able to send your invoices across, and it means that you won't be able to email or print them out, but it'll be perfect for recording those values. Next, you've got the Contacts tab. So I've got my customers and my suppliers. If I click on my customers, you'll see that we've got a couple of default ones already set up in there. So first of all, I've got my HMRC Reclaimed, which is the program's customer record. This is something you can use when you're reclaiming your VAT returns, and there's one for the suppliers as well for when you're making your VAT payments. I've got A1 Blinds and Morton de Jong. These are 2 customer records that we'll continue to use over the course of today's session. And in the suppliers, I've also created a couple of these down there as well. On my products and services screen, I'm going to have a couple of products that I've already entered in, but this will be a revamped area of the program where you can enter stock items, non-stock items, and also services. So I've got a couple in here. I'm a blinds company in this scenario. So I've got my cost price, my sales price, how many I've got on hand, and also how many I would need to reorder. Now I've left this blank for now, but I can add this in if I'd like. I'll come back to this section in a little bit more detail in the webinar later on. Next, we've got the banking screen. So I've got my bank accounts. Again, your details will be in here a little bit more in the scenario a little bit more detailed than what I've got on mine. Mine are just blank, but I can from here select to import a bank statement. I can connect directly to my online banks, and I can also create new transactions, manage a bank transfer, and also create a brand new bank account if I'd like. Next step up is journals. So a journal is something that you won't really have been able to do in your program previously. Your accountant perhaps would have been able to do this using their program, but this will be a brand new feature to you. So journals are really just a movement of money between one nominal code and another, and you can just make sure that you can correct errors or maybe manage things like payroll journals or maybe things like the hire purchase of a vehicle or an asset through journals as well. On the reporting tab, you've got the VAT returns, balance sheet, profit and loss, and trial balance reports available to you. These would have been the same reports that you've had on your Sage 1 accounts program, but on this page, you've got a little bit more detailed reports, and you've got more cash reports available too. So sales daybook report and purchase daybook report will allow you to go into more detail about what you buy and sell. You'll be able to see a profit analysis report and a sales revenue report based on your products and services, and you also have an audit trail, previously known as the transaction history report, that will allow you to pick out any particular transaction from any point in your accounting time. This was previously something you could only run once an hour, but now you can run it at any time and get it into a CSV or a PDF view. On the bottom left-hand side, you've got your cash reports. So I've got my cash flow forecast and statement reports from last time. I've also got my receipts and payments daybook report. I can see what's been reconciled and what hasn't, what's been allocated and what hasn't been, and also just a generic cash book report to see how my banks have been performing. On top of this, I've got some other extra reports like the VAT return and the stock movements for my products and services. Next up, I've got my settings. I'll just skim over this, but I'm going to be using the invoice and business preferences a little bit more later on in the webinar. So this, I can customize and personalize my invoices and what comes up on them. I can also change my financial settings as far as VAT or my chart of accounts would be concerned. I connect to things like card payments using Stripe or SagePay, and I can also integrate with my payroll program as well. So these card payments are going to be quite useful if you do want to apply them. You can maybe add on a Pay Now button onto your invoices, which means that when you email them out to your customers, there's going to be a higher chance of them clicking on that button, putting in their card details, and making sure that they can pay you on time. I've got further options to customize my accounts, and I can also enter opening balances if I'd like as well. Generally, you won't need to do this as you'll be upgrading your data and we'll have the opening balance already in there, but you can add these in at any time. That's a quick whistle-stop tour of the program. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go back into the slides and we'll cover what the values are that have changed between one program to the next. So what has changed? Now this is not an exhaustive list, these are just a few of the main things that I pointed out. So first of all, income and expenses, they now show in the banking tab as opposed to coming up in your income or expenses. You've also got a basic bank reconciliation that has been improved. So previously you would have maybe just put in your ending balance, your ending date, and maybe just kind of click some transactions and hope for the best. Now you'll be able to do a lot more on the back end for reconciliation, and when you're processing one, it'll give you a little bit more freedom to see how things have been progressing. Also products and services, so I did touch on this slightly earlier, but these have been revamped. I'm now going to add in a couple of extra products. I'll change a couple of products as well, and I'll actually apply them to an invoice. And speaking of invoices, the templates and settings have been improved, so you will be able to personalize them a little bit more, and I'll do this as well. So let's jump into the program and let's do a couple of these. So first of all, I'm going to go into my banking tab. And in here, there's a couple of different ways that you can create a new transaction. So if I go to new on the right-hand side, I can create a new purchase or a new sale. I can click into their bank account, and from here I've also got a new entry box where I can enter one for the specific bank account. So let's say I'm going to create a sale/receipt. I've got a customer receipt, which is going to be for payments on account or for paying off a customer's invoice. I've also got another receipt option, which is going to be your generic one-off customer, so maybe you don't want to record every single person who comes into your shop or place of business. You just want to record these one-off payments, so these can be recorded here. These will have been your other income from the previous program. And you've also got the option for a supplier refund that will come back to you, maybe based off a credit note or a deposit that you've since paid. So if I click on the customer option, I can select A1 Blinds, my demo company. I can put in a reference if I'd like, and put in the amount. So let's use £100. Now previously, you were only being able to select one category on your program. Now we'll be able to select multiple, so if I want to, I can go on to, let's say, code 4000, my sales products, and I can also put in, say, £60, that goes to this code, and on the second code, let's choose another one within the sales, let's use sale of assets. I can put maybe £40 in here, and this will split up the VAT accordingly and make sure that the remaining amount goes to the correct codes. I can save this or add another one immediately afterwards, but if I click save, this is going to make sure that it affects the graph that comes up within the banking, and also I can see it come up on my activity. So I'm just going to create one more entry, this time on the purchasing side. So again, the same sort of tabs that you'll get across the left-hand side. In this scenario, I'm just going to select the other payment, and I'm not going to put in a supplier. Let's say I just went to the shops and I don't want to record the supermarket as a supplier within my program. I can just say that I paid £25 out of the bank account, and again, that will split the VAT accordingly. Again, I can save it, and I can also add a file, so if I maybe take a picture of my receipt, or take a picture of the delivery note or something like that, I can apply it on here so it's all on the cloud and all in one area. However, I'll just click save for now, and now we can see £75 within the bank account, and we can see the movements below. So I've added a couple of things in here. Now we're pretty much ready to run a bank reconciliation, and I can do so from the drop-down on the top right-hand side, and just click reconcile. So previously you would have had this first part of the screen and you would have had the middle part, but you wouldn't have had the bottom part to kind of manage how your bank reconciliation was going. So in my scenario, I'm just going to use today as the statement date. I'm going to use my statement end balance as £75. And I'm going to put in my reference of November 1st reconciliation. As soon as I click apply, that will unlock these transactions. I can choose to add interest and bank charges if I'd like to. I can also, from the drop-down, select to reconcile and unreconcile on all entries, so this is going to be handy if you've got maybe dozens or hundreds of transactions at any one time in your statements. If I choose to reconcile all entries, I'll get a little more message saying, am I sure? As soon as I click OK, both boxes will be ticked, and I'll be ready, in theory, to complete my reconciliation. Now, the bits at the bottom will just keep my reconciliation in check, so I can see that received 100 and paid £25 worth of transactions. That seems to be right so far. My starting balance was nil, considering this is just a brand new account, and my target balance is the same as my statement end balance at the top, of £75. The value of these transactions comes to £75 overall, so my difference of 0 is perfect. That tells me that what I've got in my real life bank account is what I've got in my program, so in theory everything's matching up and is up to date. I can choose to save this for later, so this will save it in a draft status, and I can always come back to it and add more transactions in. Or if I click finish, this will lock the reconciliation down and allow me to see the details on the back end of it, and allow me also to print it off. This is going to be useful to have, seeing as this wasn't a piece of the previous program. If I ever want to come back to this reconciliation later on down the line, I'll just go back to the banking tab, select bank account, and then select reconciliations from the left, of which I'll be taken back to this screen, and I can further look into my transactions, or again, print off a reconciliation report. So that is bank reconciliation. Once you've got one done and out the way within the program, it will all kind of fall into place from there. The next step would be for products and services. So if I move on to this part of the program, as I say, this is an area of the program that has undergone a lot of work. So I'll now be able to apply things like this to my invoices and manage my stock and inventory as well. So I can create a new item from the right-hand side. I can make it a stock, non-stock, or service item. I can put in the code in the description. And also, if I sell it at different rates, I can show as many as 3 different sales prices and choose whether they include VAT or not. Now, from my settings, I can also change the names of these and maybe add in more if I'd like to. If I usually buy this item from a particular supplier, I can let the program know up here. And I can also say how much I bought it for and how many I would need to reorder at and how many I would reorder at any one time. At the bottom I can show my opening balance, so how many I've got on hand, and any additional information like the location of it, the barcode number, the weight, and any additional notes. If I select one of my 2 products that I've already got set up within the program, I can further edit it from the top right hand side, and I can also adjust the stock level to add more or decrease the amount that I've got on hand. Now if I click adjust stock level, I can say that I want to increase the quantity, so I want to increase it by 10. As soon as I click save, the quantity in stock will change to 15. I'll show when my last purchase was, and it'll come up within the activity as a stock take adjustment. Now I'm pretty much ready to apply this to an invoice. All I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into my settings, customize how my invoice is going to look, and then we'll raise one within the program. So if I go to the settings tab at the top, first thing I'm going to look at will be the logo and document template. So on here, previously you would have had maybe only 2 or 3 different templates to use. Now you've got 9, so you've got 3 product-based templates, 3 service-based templates, and if you're quite happy with the ones you'll have used in the past, then you will, on this drop-down, have the 3 legacy templates as well. I'm quite happy with this Midnight product one, so I'm going to select that. Here I can add a company logo and 2 association logos, so you might want to check this. You might need to just add your logo back in if you haven't got one on there. And I can also change what the theme color is going to be. So let's say I'm quite happy with this peach sort of color. I'll apply that, and I can choose what the font's going to be and the size of the font on there as well. Just going to click save there now. That's applied itself onto my settings. And the next thing I'll look at will be the record and transaction settings, when I can change what my credit terms are going to be both for my customers and for my suppliers. So let's say rather than the default 30, I want to select 14 days. I can also change my reporting aging periods, and I can change some of my ledger accounts as well. Now, although you might want to change these are the default ones that are used by the program, so maybe your accountant or bookkeeper might advise differently, but would recommend to keep these as they are if possible. The same goes for payments and receipts when I'm doing transactions through the bank. And also within the products and services, it is this place where I can change the names of my rates, and I can also change the name of my service rate as well. So I can add in maybe a premium rate or a discount rate if I'd like, just to give me some extra flexibility within the program. Quite happy with this though, so I'm just going to click save, and then I'm going to move on to the final part of my settings, which will be the invoice form settings. So on here I can change the name of what an invoice comes up as, so maybe I want to change it just to be invoice or maybe customer invoice. I can change what the prefix is going to be, so rather than sales invoice, SI, I might want to make it my company's initials, or maybe I've got a different sort of system in place. And on the right hand side, I can also change the numbering. So I can change what the next invoice number is going to be, the next estimate or quote number, and also the next credit note number. Further down the screen, I can change what I'd like to appear on the invoice. So let's say I want to maybe have my business name shown on there, but not my website. I want to show my telephone number, but not my mobile. I can tick and untick the boxes as appropriate to make sure that what is coming up on the invoice is what I feel is best. I can also change what the description is going to be. So maybe I just want to change this to the word details, or maybe I want to kind of get rid of the rate side of things on the price or rate, maybe based on the type of product or service company that I am. I can enter footer details that will come up at the bottom of my invoice just to show a little bit of extra information. And I can also add in default terms and conditions and notes to make sure that what comes up within my invoice is going to be on there for every single one when I create one. So this might be useful if you're wanting to include things like your credit terms, or you might want to add your bank account details for when customers are going to be paying you. For now, I'm just going to put in the word terms, and hopefully we'll see this when we raise an invoice in the program in just a couple of moments. So I'll save those transactions there now. What I'm going to do is go into sales, onto sales invoices, and now we're just going to apply a product to our newly kind of customized invoice layout. So I'll create a new invoice from the right hand side. On my customer record, I'm going to use A1 blinds again. The way that this part of the program will look will be fairly similar compared to how you'll have processed your invoices in the past. The full screen will be a little bit larger, and you'll get a little bit more flexibility, but the premise is the same. So I can select the product/service, and as soon as I select this blind bracket large, it's going to give me an auto-filled description, ledger account, price/rate, and also VAT rate. If I hover over the quantity, it tells me that I've got 15 in stock, and if I increase this from 1 to 10, that will automatically update the totals and the VAT amounts as well. If I move on to 18, then the program will be clever enough to know that I've not got enough in stock physically to be able to fulfill the invoice. So for now, I'm just going to leave this as 10, and then we're quite happy to progress with the invoice. I can see within my terms and conditions that the word has popped up, so I know that this is going to be appropriate for sending out to my customer. I can now also save this as a draft invoice or a pro forma invoice, which means I can add it into the program without it affecting my reports and allowing me to delete it rather than just having to void it. If I'm happy to save it now, I can just save it in email, or also save and print, but I'm quite happy just to click save on here now. So there is my invoice. I'm pretty much happy to go ahead and process on with this now. I will be applying more details to these invoices and more transactions to these invoices as well. I'll leave it as unpaid for now, but you can record the payment using this button and maybe part paying the invoice and choosing a particular date in which it was paid in. I can also turn on card payments with Stripe or SagePay, which means I can apply that Pay Now button to my invoicing, and hopefully this means that when you send an email out to a customer, it can avoid those awkward conversations of asking them if they've paid or if they're likely to pay sometime in the near future. On from here, I can also add in my send an email and print it off, add a credit note if I'd like to, or if I want to, I can further edit or void the invoice. That's pretty much it in terms of the features that have since changed. What we're going to cover now is some of the new features. So again, not an exhaustive list, but I'm just going to go back into the slideshow and have a quick check at what these are. So a few of the things that I've pointed out, as well as things like estimates and quotes, were refunds, payments on account, and standalone credit notes. You've also got the ability to trade in foreign currencies and with overseas customers and suppliers. And you've also got the ability to add on as many users within the system as you'd like, and the ability to run journals and see the effect of those journals come up on your reports. So let's just jump back into the program. So I've got this invoice which is listed as outstanding, but perhaps I've got a credit note that's going to apply itself to more than just this invoice, or maybe the credit note for some reason came in before the invoice did. Now I want to record that by itself, so if I go to sales credit notes, I can just create a brand new one on its own, and I can apply this to whoever I'd like as well. So again, we're going to use A1 blinds, and for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm just going to make the credit note the exact same amount as what was coming up on the invoice. So if I just click to save that, that's now got itself logged on, and I can record a refund against this if I'd like, or further configure the credit note. But on the left-hand side, I'm quite happy to now allocate this against my invoice to match them off so that neither are showing as outstanding. So if I click on the record on the left-hand side for A1 blinds, we can see that the sales invoice and credit note are both sitting on there as outstanding. I've also got that other receipt from earlier on as well. If I go to the Manage option and then go to Account Allocation, I can tick these off against each other. They'll now be paired up, and then when I click Save, neither shows outstanding, and I've got a customer allocation within the activity to show what has been matched up as well. That's going to be very useful to use. You can also use credit notes to apply to things like refunds, but in this scenario, we're quite happy to pair it off against the invoice and show the movement of money within the program. Next thing I'll look at just before we go into the banking side of things will be the quotes and estimates. So you can just generate a brand new quote by going to the option on the right hand side. Again, I can select my customer record. This will look exactly the same as an invoice would. I can put in a brief description, put in my amount, let's say £250, and then as soon as I save this, I can send it out to my customer. So if they agree and want to accept that quote, we can create an invoice from it, or if they disagree, we can mark it as declined or further edit the details from here. Now what we'll do is we'll look at the payments on account and refunds options. So from here, I'm going to go into my bank account, and I'm going to record another sales/receipt. So I'm going to keep it on customer receipt this time. Usually this area of the program would be used for dealing with payments against invoices, so you can record maybe a large payment against more than one invoice. But in this scenario, I can just select the customer record, put in the amount, let's say again £250, and for the reference, I'm just going to put in deposit. So this deposit is something I'm going to be paying on account, or that the A1 Blinds company is going to be paying on account to myself, and I'm going to refund them at a later date once they've fulfilled certain requirements. So I can click Save on here. This will give me a little warning saying, am I sure? If I click yes, that's going to automatically take it into the bank account and give me £325. Now let's say I'm wanting to refund this back to the customer. I can go to the Purchase/Payment option, select Customer Refund from the left-hand side, and as soon as I select A1 Blinds, and the bottom half of the screen, it's going to show me my unallocated payment on account. So I don't have to put an amount refunded in there, because as soon as I tick this box, it'll apply itself and allocate it, and when I click Save, the money will then disappear back out of the bank account and leave me with my previous £75. So a bit of flexibility that you can use with the refunds and payments on account. They can also be used for correcting errors if you need to as well. But you'll be able to do a lot more, and it's a lot more realistic, as previously within the program you would have maybe had to do a negative other income or negative other expense to try and balance things out, which isn't realistic, and it also isn't the best approach to take for accounting purposes either. So very useful part of the program. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to go into the settings, and we're going to go into the foreign trader element. So if I select the currencies option from the financial settings, I'll be able to enable foreign currency transactions. This will be a table of the euro currency, the US dollar currency, and also the pound sterling, of course. It will give me the exchange rate, and this is updated every 24 hours by the European Central Bank. And if I want to adjust these, I can untick the exchange rate boxes and then overtype on here. Let's keep those ticked for now, though. If I want to use any of the other currencies around the world, I can select from the drop-down. So maybe if I want to use the Australian dollar or the Canadian dollar, they will be available from this drop-down list. For now, I'm just quite happy with the ones I've got, so I'm going to click Save. And now I'm ready to start creating invoices against my customers or suppliers who live overseas or who work overseas. So let's do that now. If I go to my customers, and we'll open up the record for Martin de Jong. And if I go to the contacts and addresses, we can see they're set up as being a Dutch customer. And if I go to the options tab, they'll be set up with the kind of pound sterling already. But maybe we're wanting to change this. Let's say we're wanting to move this onto the euro. The VAT number I've put in for a Dutch customer already, so as soon as I click Save, every symbol at the top will now change to being the euro symbol, and under my payment details, the credit limit is now in euros. So in theory, I should now be able to create an invoice against them, and it'll do the right thing. So I'll go to the new invoice option, select them from the drop-down list. The first thing the program will do is it will tell me at the top that this customer is registered for VAT in the European Union. It'll tell me that my VAT is going to work out accordingly, and also on the right-hand side it's going to tell me that this is in euros and that it's got my exchange rate ready to use. So again, I'm just going to put in a test description. I'm going to put in a rate of 1,000 euros, and the bottom of the program will tell me that £881.73 based on the exchange rate is how much I would expect to earn from this invoice. Now, if I want to overtype on here, just change the exchange rate to something different, that will then change the amount in pound sterling on here as well. So again, I'm quite happy with this. I've also got a couple of extra chevrons on the right-hand side, so I can apply goods and related services, or maybe services to the invoice depending on what it's doing. And I could also add on an EU sales description as well. Now, if you're not sure what to select on here, it might be best to consult an accountant or a bookkeeper, but the program will do everything as default to make sure that you're on the right lines and that everything is worked out accordingly. So if I click Save on this invoice, it'll allow me to see the details in both euro and pound sterling. Again, I can record my payment or turn on card payments for the Pay Now button. So if I click Record Payment, I can show that was 1,000 euros coming in. I can change the exchange rate if I'd like to, so let's just change this one slightly. That'll update the amount in terms of pound sterling. I can say that came into my bank account electronically. I can put in a reference if I'd like, and also any currency charges. So as soon as I click Record, that'll mark it down as being paid. And when I look over the payment, I can see that it was a customer receipt on today's date, with the option to refund it if I ever needed to. And if I now go to my banking, I can now see that my bank account, based on the exchange rate, has got just under £1,000 in it now. So that's pretty much me sorted from a transaction perspective. Now maybe I want to have a couple of other people from within my company processing on the accounts to either do invoices or to report on things. Previously, this wouldn't really have been an option, as the Sage 1 Accounts program was a single user, single company sort of program. But now you will be able to add on people to be able to work on the program at the same time as you. With it all being cloud-based, that's not a problem. And maybe you might have to give to your employees or a couple of other colleagues your email address and password to be able to log into the program so they could process things. So from a security standpoint and from an auditing standpoint, that wouldn't really be ideal in the slightest. Now what I can do though is if I go to the Settings tab and click on the User Management option, we can see that I've got my own company and my own user set up on here. If I want to invite my user, all I need to do is put in the email address above. So long as it's valid and so long as it's unique within the program, it'll be accepted. If we select the System Manager permissions, this means that they can also add on and manage users on their own, where we can choose their general role to be full access, restricted access, read-only, no access, or custom. Now if I select the custom access, that means I can select the advanced permissions option below. So maybe I want them to see all these details, but maybe not the reporting side of things. I can tell them not to have access here. So let's say I'm happy with that. I can choose to then save it. That will send an invite out to them, and all they would need to do is click a link within the email, and they can add on their name, their customized password, and then they'll be able to access the system just like you would be able to as well. Now, as far as I'm aware, there is no limit in terms of how many users you can have on any one time, and it will cause no conflict either. So you can be doing a bank reconciliation while somebody else is looking at reports and somebody else is looking over the invoices. So a very useful area of the program and something that you'll be able to kind of report on as well. So on the audit trail and on other areas of the program, it will show the initials of who's been doing certain transactions. So if you ever need to check up on things, then you'll be able to look at that and then see what needs to be done. Perhaps somebody's entered in too many transactions, we need to delete things. You can look at who's done that and then make sure that they can sort that problem out, or vice versa. Now the final thing we'll look at as part of the new features will be the journals. So this is a part of the program that you might not need to use, but you might need to use based on particular scenarios, or maybe your accountant or bookkeeper might ask you to run a journal now that we're in this program. So the option is to run a new journal from the right-hand side. I can put in a reference, a description, and the date of the journal. So let's just put in, say, journal number 1. And then I'll be able to select which ledger accounts I'm wanting to use for the kind of the exchange of the money. So if I select 4 random ledger codes in this instance, I can select plant and machinery cost, put in some details on this line if I'd like to, and I can choose to enter a debit amount in. Let's use £125. And on the second option, let's use something slightly different. So let's use pension, and we can put in a credit value of £70. So a debit will increase the amount of money on that code, and a credit will decrease. So you could imagine you paying somebody an invoice or something like that. You'll be crediting your bank account when you make that payment, or when somebody pays you some money, you'll be debiting the bank account with that. So the exact same premise is applied here. You can choose whether these are included on the VAT return or not. What I'll do is I'll just cover an extra couple of codes to balance out this journal. So let's use import duty, put £60 on there. And to balance things out, we'll use something in the 7,000s range. Let's use rent. I'll apply the remaining £115 on here. As long as the debit and the credit balances are equal, I can then choose to save the journal. And then should I want to do anything more with this journal, once it's saved, I'll be able to go into it, print it out, delete it, reverse it, copy it, really pretty much do whatever I'd like from within the system. Let's do that now. If I click under the journal, we'll have these available options on the right-hand side. So that would be pretty much it in terms of the new features. There are a few other ones as well that you will be able to take advantage of. Things like analysis types, you can add in departments, cost centers, and projects now. You'll be able to report on those. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to cover a couple of the reports to see what we're kind of done within the program in this session, and then we'll cover what this means for you when you have your upgrade completed as well. So firstly, if I go to my reporting, then go into the trial balance report. Just using this month, I can see quite a lot of data that has been put into the program now. So a few of this will have been based on my sales invoices and my payments. A few of them will have been part of those journals, and a few of those will have been tagged along, things like VAT, that are always going to be part of the transactions automatically. So on here, I can see, for example, plant and machinery cost. I've got 125 from my journal. Whereas my bank account, that's obviously the accumulation of my sales and purchases, and the VAT on sales and purchases themselves have now cropped up with their relevant figures. So I'll take a look at these and we'll just make sure we can remember these figures when they come up on the VAT return, and that will tell me that everything reconciles from a VAT perspective. The other bits and pieces that have gone on here, but I'm quite happy with the way that things look. Let's say I'm now ready to run my VAT return and get that submitted off to HMRC. So I just create the VAT return from the list on the right hand side. I can choose what my VAT period is going to be from and to. So let's just use something that encompasses November. So let's go from the 1st of October up until the 31st of December this year. And then as soon as I click calculate, that will give me the results within the boxes on here. So I can say already that I've got £12.50 that would need to be paid to HMRC in this scenario. If I want to, I can print off this page and this will give me all the boxes with the values in. And then I can also run a detailed report in either an Excel or PDF format. And what that will do is that will just give me a detailed look at transaction by transaction analysis of how all of these figures were attained. I can make adjustments on the left-hand side. This might be something that your accountant or bookkeeper might want to do or might want to advise on, but you will be able to further adjust most of these boxes. And on the right-hand side, I can choose to submit to HMRC via the government gateway by putting in my HMRC user ID and password. and I can also submit to HMRC by other means and submit it manually. I can click this Save and Return to Later, so that will allow me to put it into a draft status so I can further configure and calculate the values that come up onto it. But generally this will be all Making Tax Digital compliant, ready for April. Currently this option to submit to HMRC by other means is probably not going to be used a great deal moving forward, as HMRC are wanting everything to be on a digital basis, and any more details that go into the program will most likely be carried through in the background without any input from yourself to make sure that everything is going to run smoothly and is going to be compliant as well. For now, I'm just going to save this return and submit it later, and this will put it into a draft status where I can choose to delete it or click back onto it to apply further changes or submit it for real. So that would be pretty much it in terms of what we're covering, and that is a bit, kind of a bit of a whistle-stop tour in terms of the program and the processing side of it, just showing kind of the more flexible areas of the program compared to how you'll have processed in the past, and hopefully it means that you're able to run things more accurately, more professionally, and kind of more personally to how you want to run your business reflected in your program. So what I'll cover now is what this will mean for you as a whole. So there are a number of examples of what you'll be able to do and get the most out of your upgrade for the accounting system. This overview, again, is not exhaustive, but these are the main points I could come up with. Firstly, there is no added cost with your upgrade, so what you pay now is what you'll pay for Sage Business Cloud Accounting. You'll be Making Tax Digital and VAT compliant ready for the 1st of April 2019, of course. You'll have extra freedom, extra flexibility and options available for processing within your program and for error correction, things like that. You'll have more options available rather than having to go around the houses or have to get your accountant or bookkeeper involved. Your data will be upgraded for you and will be done so automatically. So all your data will be as it was. You won't have to worry about starting again from scratch or at any previous moment in time. It's all going to be there, ready and waiting. And then finally, you can add on as many people from within your business to be a user of the software, each with their own set of permissions and login credentials for security and auditing purposes. So that has pretty much taken us to the end of today's session. We have further support options available within our help articles. So we've got that link down at the bottom, which allows you to see the exact help place where you can get all the articles and all the videos regarding moving from accounts to accounting. That'll make sure that you've got everything at your fingertips, and we'll go into a little bit more detail per kind of scenario than this webinar, and you'll be able to see maybe what something could be like for yourself when you're running through things on your own side in a little bit more detail. Help.sageone.com will just be the generic website that you'll be able to go to for the support generally within the program. And I would advise to use these help articles and help videos as much as you feel you need to, because they are updated on a regular basis and they will contain all the information that you'd need per your scenario to make sure that you're getting the most out of the system. So that is pretty much it. So thank you very much for watching today's session. If you do have any questions or anything with regards to your upgrade, we do have an email inbox which is supported 24/7. That's on sagebusinesscloudsupport@sage.com. We also have the website sageone.com, which allows you to get all the extra information in terms of blogs, in terms of the help site, and in terms of bits and pieces from within the program that you feel you might be able to benefit most out of. So hopefully this has maybe eased a few concerns and maybe eased a few queries that you will have had beforehand. Hopefully it's going to give you a little bit more confidence when it comes to processing on your side, and maybe I've run through a few scenarios that might be relevant to yourself, or maybe I thought I could maybe use that as a slight improvement to how I've been doing things in the past. As I say, any more questions that you would have, don't hesitate to get into contact with us at any time or check out the website. A lot of great stuff on there. But I hope to see you on a future webinar, and thank you for your attendance here today.